Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy Monday afternoon. I am here with our superstar transaction coordinator, Laura Lone. Hello,
Hello.
how are you?
I'm great. It's lovely to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yes, of course. We love you, so we have to invite you. So let's give our audience some education about transaction coordination.
Right. What is transaction coordination, right? What is that? So, if you're ever buying or selling a house, you will be introduced at some point to, more than likely, a transaction coordinator. But you'll probably never meet them. There'll be an email address or a phone call. They are the people behind the scenes who are helping with the disclosures, helping to make sure the real estate documents are in order, all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, that all the information is in order, that you're taking all the very exciting stuff, like you're taking title properly and things are being signed for properly, and that deadlines are being met. Because in every escrow, there's a set of very specific deadlines that have to be met for both the agents, the buyers, the sellers, escrow, for everyone to keep on track with. And so each agent, the buyer's agent and the seller's agent, will have their own transaction coordinator. And they're sort of like the behind the scenes help for the agent to make sure things are moving on track, and that everything's in order. And also maybe a therapist kind of can work as a therapist as well when things aren't going to plan. Call your transaction coordinator.
So, therapist for the buyers and sellers, or therapist for the agents who are
For the
working?
agent, probably more than anything. Yeah. Buyers and sellers too. Anyone can call your transaction coordinator or a TC. We always get called the TCs.
TC. So if I am the buyer or the seller, I would probably ask, why do you need a transaction coordinator? Why aren't you doing everything yourself?
Right. Yes. No, and that's a good question. It is always, and no matter how much business an agent has, it is always good to have a second set of eyes on everything. But we're all human and we all miss things. So it's always really nice to have a fresh set of eyes to look through things. Also, for agents, a lot of the time, this is the only profession where you have to deal with really detailed information in your car, or moving from one appointment to the next appointment. A lot of other professions that are so detailed oriented, they turn up in their office. They spend most of the time in their office. They maybe go out to lunch and come back. But for real estate agents, they have to wear their marketing hats. They have to wear their business. They have to wear a lot of different hats. So having a transaction coordinator that you can depend on, who can make sure that all the details are taken care of and the timelines are moving along, and to help, it's like the real estate agent's the coach, and then your TC is your assistant coach. They're just there to help you uh, make sure nothing falls through the cracks and that everything is moving along okay.
I like how you make it compare it to football, because football is
I thought you would.
so when you say football and you say coach and assistant coach, that makes perfect sense for me. It clicks and I understand it. So for the audience of ours that are also football fans, or actually any sport, right? Because any sport, you have a coach and you have an assistant coach, and so it makes it much easier to understand when you're putting it into sports terms, right?
Right, because the agents, they're the captain, they're the coach, they're the ones that are making the big plays. They're in charge. Like, so for the buyer or the seller, the agent is the one to talk to. They have the big picture. They know what's going on. The transaction coordinator is the one that is just making sure that the plan is being executed the way the agent wants it to be.
Execute it.
Yes.
So let's talk about timelines, because timelines are also very, very important in a real estate transaction, right?
Very important.
So let's talk about what are those timelines, and how the transaction coordinator uh, can help the agent, because talking about living in your car, and trying to go through all the details of a transaction as you're going from one appointment to the next. How do you assure those things, and how the transaction coordinator's role is so critical to make sure those timelines are met? So let's go over those timelines. You are really good at details, so give us an overview.
This is hopefully recorded as well as being live. You heard it here. I'm good at details. um, so the main and you could also call, it's almost like you could call a transaction coordinator a transaction communicator as well, because it's the other thing that's really important in the timelines. The first thing to do is make sure everyone is on the same page with the timelines. So obviously the biggest timelines are when is the acceptance of the contract, and then when is the close of escrow. So those are the big ones. Then within those timeframes, the most immediate one is usually when the earnest money deposit needs to get into escrow, generally around 3 business days. Then after that, it's contractually, then the contingency removals is what's important. So the agent is busy. This is all the other things the agent is having to do. They have to, book all the inspections, get all the estimates, all these sorts of things, and they need to do it within these time frames. The appraisal contingency removal and the loan contingency removal are the biggest ones. And they all vary depending on the contract. So we get our lead from the contract and what's agreed to. So the acceptance is generally the date that the last party, buyer or seller, finally agrees to the terms, and that's generally the date that will be the acceptance date, and that starts the clock ticking on all the other dates, the earnest money deposit, the contingency removals, those sorts of things. But of course, when you're as an agent, you're negotiating back and forth. You're not taking into consideration things like holidays or weekends, because those are the smaller details that are shouldn't be considered during the bigger picture negotiations. So once that is settled, then your transaction coordinator can take that information and give you those bigger timelines, taking into account the weekends or holidays that then will fall into when that acceptance begins.
So basically, what you're saying is, um, you have the dates set within the contract, but if those deadlines fall on a holiday or on the weekend, um, those dates do not count. We always move to the next
Yes,
business.
we have to roll them over to the next business day. So if, say, a contingency removal for inspections was 7 days and we got acceptance and then we count out. So acceptance is day 0. The next day is day 1. We count 1, 2, 3, and we get to 7, and that happens to land on a Saturday or a Sunday. It's written in the contract that no deadline, no task will have to fall on a weekend or a holiday. So it will roll over to the Monday. If the Monday is the holiday, then it rolls over to the Tuesday. And then we need to, right at the beginning of escrow, a good TC will make sure that all the deadlines are written out and then shares them with everyone in the transaction, escrow officers, the other party, buyer, seller, if they have a transaction. So everyone, to the clients, to the buyers and sellers, to make sure that everyone's on the same page right from the beginning.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, so let's talk about where, I really rely on our transaction coordinator when things get ugly. And when you really need to count those dates, but as you said, we're busy wheeling and dealing and making deals, and we're busy going from one appointment to the next. But when things get ugly, those dates really matter, right? So, for example, if the buyer is not performing and the seller is upset that their time is being wasted or the buyer is dragging their feet, and then you go back to the contract and you're trying to force one party to do one thing and or protect the other party for another thing, those dates then become really important. When there are dates to send a notice to perform to, let's say, if the buyer is not performing and the seller is trying to force them, then you need to send a notice to perform. How does those dates work, and how does our invaluable transaction coordinator come to really help us with those dates?
That's really, yeah, really important. And it's also, that's a good point as well, that in a good relationship between a transaction coordinator and an agent, they'll be talking the whole way through. And the agent can also let you know if there's any nuance to it as well. A lot of the times agents have really good instincts, so they'll pick up on something. So right at the beginning of the transaction, they're like, I don't know, I got this impression maybe there's going to be an issue with this. Maybe they need, so that's a good heads up, because what you'd want to do is your transaction coordinator then is let the agent know at least 2 days before, 2 business days before a contingency is due, to give them a heads up and let them know, should we be issuing a notice to buyer to perform, because that's what they need, 2 days prior to the contingency removal date, because that will give this, if it's on the listing side, then the ability to cancel immediately if those contingencies aren't removed on that date. So it's really important during an escrow for the transaction coordinator and the agent to really be in close contact about, okay, how do we think this is going? For example, if the earnest money isn't delivered on time, that's generally an indication that perhaps this buyer is not as enthusiastic about this sale as we had hoped they would be at the onset of this contract to be signed. So to immediately let the agent know, I haven't seen this earnest money deposit come in, and let them know they can start making some phone calls, checking in with the buyer's agent, checking in with escrow. Have they seen it? Is there a delay? But to let them know. And then if that was just delivered late, there's some grace given, but they're on alert now that something's up. That they can be in close communication. So if we need to, we can send a notice to buyer to perform 2 days prior, and that will give us the ability to cancel on the day then that the contingency needs to be removed if they haven't done so already. So you have to perform to the contract. It gets very tight then.
So we're talking a lot about contingencies. I don't know if our audience know exactly what contingencies are. So can you go more into what are contingencies, what are the deadlines, and why does a buyer or seller care about contingencies or their removals?
Right, good point. There's so much terminology and phrases that once you're in it, you just take it for granted. So contingencies are this contract and the fulfillment of the contract being contingent upon certain activities being completed. For example, there's the inspection or physical inspection or due diligence. There's certain different sort of phrases that people use, but the physicality and information about the actual physical property is what we commonly refer to as the inspection contingency. And that's then After the offer's been made, the buyer has a chance to get to know the property more. It's not set up so that you just sign and buy a house and then that's it. And then after the sale closes, you find out things are leaking or there's issues. It's built in so that the buyer has a chance to get to know the property more, not just the physical side of the property, but they also get to know if there are any liens on the property, if there are any easements that go through the property. If your neighbor, say, has an easement that goes right through your backyard. So it's the buyer's opportunity to get to know the ins and outs of the property. They're allowed to bring in inspectors to test out the appliances, the heating, all kinds of inspections. And they have a time period where they're able to complete all their inspections, read all the reports, read the disclosures that the seller has given them within that time frame. And then once they have satisfied their curiosity and gotten to know all about the property, if they are satisfied and they've seen everything they could possibly about the property and they're like, I still want this house, then they can remove that contingency, sort of like a more of a commitment to moving forward within the transaction. Conversely, then, if they are in escrow and they have had an inspection and found a huge problem that the both parties can't agree on the cost to remedy it, the buyer then has an opportunity to say, I'm not going to remove the contingency. In fact, I cancel. And no harm, no foul. The buyer gets their earnest money deposit back. The only cost that the buyer has incurred is what they've spent on the inspections to learn about the property. But it's their opportunity to get to know it and then either remove a contingency and commit further to the contract. The following contingencies are the appraisal. So that is the buyer's lenders. It's a third party that is hired that will go out to the property and evaluate it and see what they determine to be the sales price of the property, and they'll report that to the lender. And then the lender will also work with the buyer and all their documents to get them approved, and the appraisal helps to get the property approved. Once they're in agreement, they can remove the loan contingency. So those are the big ones for contingency. There are a few others, but those are the big ones for contingencies and your commitment to the property as you move through escrow and remove them or not.
One time I actually had a title report, which is one of the contingencies, right?
Yeah.
And the neighbor's sewer line was going underneath it was going through from under the house that my client was buying. So that was a big contingency. And of course, there was no way to remove the sewer line unless you just basically go around the house to the other side, or try to get a deep discount from the seller that we were buying the house from to give us a discount for this inconvenience that now we have to deal with the neighbor's sewer line going underneath the house. So things like that.
What happened?
We got a nice size discount.
Well, I'm not surprised, Roxanne. Well done. That's the thing that's interesting about the transactions in escrows. You think that when and this is, I think, the value that a lot of people maybe don't realize with agents as well, is it's not about looking for and finding the property. It's once you get into escrow, the agent has so much work that they do, because there's a major point during the escrow where the agent can or needs to renegotiate again. The price can change.
Yeah.
The credits, like so it's work with the good.
When everything, you put a property onto the MLS, and from the MLS, boom, it goes to all the other websites. So the agent and the buyer practically see the house come on the market at the same time. So you are absolutely right that the agent's role is not just to find the property, but also to navigate through the transaction and make sure that the buyer's rights are protected.
And to know what would happen, because most people I don't think would know to look for an easement that with the sewer line that goes under the property, and then what they can do about that. But then a seasoned agent, a good agent, can help them with that.
Absolutely. And of course, a seasoned, good transaction coordinator, right?
It helps sound an alarm.
Well, my friends and the audience, we really appreciate you joining us and getting to know Laura. And if you are thinking of buying or selling, we are here and we would love to help you. You can contact me at my phone number. Always happy to chat with you. And if you prefer email, there's my email. Always happy to chat with you through email as well. And our website, Pemberley Realty, you can access us through that website or through my website, my name as well. Again, Laura and I, we're here, and along with our entire team of our fantastic agents, and all of us are here and would love to be of service to you, your friends, your family. You can find us on Instagram at Roxanne Govari as well. And you guys have a great day. Thanks for joining us.